This is one of those biblical stories about angels and dark beings, and that's exactly what they're really about. They are referring to these interdimensional entities. And among all the theories, there is one considered the darkest. These prophecies mention a messianic figure who would descend upon the clouds of the sky. Many of the ancient stories are, in fact, stylized echoes of something much greater. In the most recent episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, things got weird quickly when a cutting-edge artificial intelligence deciphered the Book of Enoch. This artificial intelligence has the ability to translate some of these ancient languages, which is truly fascinating. It not only reads the text, but also reveals secrets that were supposedly hidden for centuries. Suddenly, everything, from angels and dark entities to the origins of humanity, is no longer what it seemed to be. Now, mystics are ecstatic, skeptics are on high alert, and the internet is in meltdown. Are we facing a groundbreaking discovery about ancient truths, or is it all just a high-level technological illusion? Either way, this is most certainly, absolutely, and undeniably not your typical or ordinary history lesson. Join us as we slowly and carefully unveil the truly, genuinely unthinkable, something you never imagined. The 5 parts of the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, also known as First Enoch, is divided into 5 parts. The Book of the Watchers, which spans from the 1st to the 36th chapter, plunges the reader into an intense drama about angels who abandon their heavenly posts and unite with human women. Their children, the Nephilim, grow into giants whose actions spark conflicts across the earth. Enoch, described as a man who walked with God, is chosen to deliver messages between these fallen angels, called Watchers, and the divine court. They plead for forgiveness, but their request is denied. Imprisoned and cast into a dark abyss, the Watchers become a warning. Even beings of light can go astray when they abandon their purpose. The Book of Parables, which spans from chapter 37 to 71, shifts the tone from celestial judgment to a grand prophecy. 3 vivid stories introduce the Son of Man, a mysterious celestial judge. In these parables, the unjust face a great reckoning, while the righteous await the kingdom founded on justice. It feels like the prelude to a cosmic epic, visions of thrones above the clouds, angels proclaiming judgment, and the promise that every wrong will be set right. The Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, covering chapters 72 to 82, feels like a guided tour through the night sky. Detailed passages trace the sun's daily journey, the phases of the moon, and the changing of the seasons. A solar calendar of 365 days is compared to the lunar months used by many ancient peoples, suggesting that the cosmos follows its own divine schedule. But these are not dry observations. Each orbit and eclipse is connected to a higher plan, with seasons marking spiritual transitions and celestial movements offering hidden signs to attentive readers. The Book of Dream Visions, spanning chapters 83 to 90, delves into allegory and presents 2 powerful visions. The first recounts the Great Flood in vivid detail, with waters covering the earth and divine commands guiding the survivors through the deluge. The second transforms the story into a grand animal allegory. Sheep, wolves, leopards, and other beasts represent ancient nations, leaders, and significant events in the history of Israel. From the days of Adam to the exile and the conquests, each encounter between creatures reveals a chapter of the human journey, concluding with the same hope for a just kingdom introduced earlier. The Epistle of Enoch, which spans from chapter 91 to 108, closes the collection as a letter of wisdom from an elder to future generations. It presents simple yet powerful rules. Live with integrity, show mercy, and act with humility. The tone blends encouragement for the faithful with warnings for the proud. Near the end, it returns to apocalyptic scenes, angelic armies, final battles, and the vision of a renewed land where peace finally reigns. Together, these 5 parts transform the Book of Enoch into a rich blend of drama, prophecy, celestial science, symbolic history, and moral teachings. Today, cutting-edge artificial intelligence tools are uncovering hidden patterns, connections between repeated words, or numerical codes that suggest new meanings yet to be fully understood. The Lost Prophecies of Enoch. Since its first appearance, The Book of Enoch has remained on the border between history and legend, attracting scholars and seekers of faith with its extraordinary accounts. Unlike the well-known story of Adam and Eve, this text claims that human error did not begin in a garden, but rather with the arrival of angels who strayed from their purpose. It describes prayers being offered to Enoch himself, almost as if he had become an intermediary between heaven and earth. This detail alone sparked heated debates. Was Enoch a bridge to divine secrets, or merely a symbolic figure for ideas that people were not yet ready to accept? These discussions have gained momentum again in recent years. A quick search on YouTube reveals dozens of videos, some with over 10 million views, in which hosts analyze each chapter as if it were the next big blockbuster. Even Hollywood has drawn inspiration from it. The film Noah, directed by Darren Aronofsky in 2014, revives elements from these ancient narratives. Watching the rain fall on the ark takes on new meaning when you realize that part of the plot may have been inspired by Enoch's cosmic vision. It's important to know where the Book of Enoch comes from. Written between approximately 100 years before the Common Era and 300 years after the beginning of the Common Era, it is classified as an Enochian work because it bears the name of Enoch, the great-great-grandson of Adam and the great-grandfather of Noah. The Book of Genesis states that Enoch walked with God, and ancient accounts make reference to these family ties. However, the true authors of the text remain anonymous. They used the name of Enoch to give more authority to what they wrote, which was something common at the time. Dozens of pseudepigraphal texts circulated, all claiming to have been written by famous figures from the past. What makes the Book of Enoch special is its blend of cosmic drama with moral warnings. It introduces the Watchers, angels who were supposed to protect the world, but who ended up falling in love with human women. From this union, giants were born, called Nephilim, the sons of God who joined with the daughters of men. The result was hybrid descendants, known as the Fallen Ones. And with them came a wave of conflict and bloodshed. Enoch's mission, according to the text, was to intercede for mercy, both for the rebellious angels and for humanity. Few other writings so vividly blend knowledge about celestial beings with end-times prophecies. This ancient touch is one of the reasons why artificial intelligence has come into play. Modern technology is able to detect patterns that the human eye would never notice, like a hidden code in the repetition of certain words or numerical connections between passages separated by decades of copying and translation. The initial results suggest additional layers in the text, prophecies that may point to events far later than the time when the original scribes put ink to papyrus. Some passages sound like warnings about environmental collapse. Others seem to anticipate astronomical cycles that have only recently been understood by science. Imagine going back in time, finding a forgotten scroll in the basement of a library, feeding it into an artificial intelligence model trained on thousands of ancient works, and watching as the machine highlights phrases that align with modern concerns. Climate change, population growth, and even the emergence of new beliefs. Suddenly, the Book of Enoch no longer seems so distant. Its stories connect past and present in ways that are hard to ignore. To understand why this ancient text continues to spark intense analysis, both from scholars and algorithms, it's worth looking at how the Book of Enoch is structured. The Watchers Reimagined. One of the most fascinating twists in the story of the Watchers is the idea that these figures were not angels, but visitors from other worlds. Ancient alien theories suggest that advanced beings arrived on Earth thousands of years ago and acted as guides for the first civilizations. According to this view, the Watchers from the Book of Enoch taught humanity knowledge such as metallurgy, star mapping, and strategies of war, skills that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. From this perspective, these celestial instructors would be cosmic engineers, not just spiritual guardians. Supporters of this theory point to the Nephilim, giant descendants born from the union between the Watchers and humans, as evidence of hybrids between humans and visitors from beyond Earth. Myths about half-human giants appear in various cultures around the world, and enthusiasts believe that these stories conceal real encounters. If ancient scribes witness powerful beings in shining vessels or wearing unusual outfits, it makes sense that they would describe them as angels and include their stories in sacred texts. The gaps between legend and archaeology seem easier to fill with extraterrestrial technology than with mere human inventions. Clues found within the text itself may sound like science fiction. References to bright lights crossing the skies, chariots of fire, and secret passages have already been reinterpreted as sightings of unidentified flying objects and hidden landing sites. A passage describing a luminous vehicle descending among the clouds is quite reminiscent of a modern craft in flight. When the stories say that the Watchers brought fire to Earth or showed humans how to work with metals, doesn't it sound a lot like a pilot teaching a young civilization how to use advanced tools? Critics, however, argue that these ideas about ancient aliens underestimate actual human capability. They point to impressive feats such as pyramids, megaliths, and precisely carved stones, which can be explained by trial and error over centuries of manual labor. For these scholars, attributing such achievements to the intervention of beings from another planet diminishes the value of ancient engineers and architects. Instead of aliens, they see mythological cultures using stories with angels and giants to convey lessons about pride, power, and the dangers of forbidden knowledge. Despite the criticism, ancient astronaut theories remain extremely popular. Television shows dramatize encounters between the Watchers and humans, as described by Enoch, while best-selling books mix biblical passages with modern accounts of UFO sightings. Online forums are abuzz with people comparing star maps from the Book of Enoch with satellite images and debating which mountains could have served as landing platforms. This blend of religion, history, and science fiction creates fertile ground for anyone who wonders who really walked the earth in ancient times. Many who believe in this idea argue that humanity's earliest texts were not written by distant scribes, but by people trying to describe the impossible. A star map could seem like an encoded message from the sky, and a shining aircraft could be seen as something divine, especially without the proper vocabulary to explain it. Language limited what early writers were able to express, so they wrapped their memories in the ideas they knew. Angels, giants, and hidden realms, before passing these stories down through generations. Other readers take a middle ground, enjoying the fascination of ancient alien theories, without insisting that every line of the Book of Enoch refers to visitors from another planet. They see the Watchers as mythological symbols of external influences, whether divine or extraterrestrial, and value the way these stories engage with humanity's ongoing search for meaning. If these narratives inspire wonder, spark debates, and make people look up at the night sky, then they have already served a purpose, regardless of their true origin. The Hidden Prince. The in-depth analysis conducted by artificial intelligence in Chapter 18 of the Book of Enoch sheds new light on a figure called Saturnalia, who is presented as the leader of the rebellious Watchers. In this later part of the text, he is clearly described as the Prince of the Fallen Angels. From the moment this title is mentioned, it becomes difficult not to look back at Chapter 7 and wonder if his presence was not already there, hidden from the very beginning. A closer reading of Chapter 7 reveals subtle clues of this Adamic tradition. The passage does not mention Saturnalia directly, but states that the angels departed together with their prince. This exact expression, with their prince, mirrors the language used in Chapter 18, where the Watchers turn away from the Lord together with their prince, Saturnalia. Identifying the same words in both passages suggests that the story of Saturnalia as a leader was already woven into the earlier narrative, even if only as an outline. Why does this matter? In classic stories about Adam, the opposing figure is often called the prince or leader of the rebellious spirits. By repeating this same title in the narrative of the Watchers, Chapter 7 quietly connects the fallen angels to the broader myth of the heavenly rebellion. It is the moment when the Book of Enoch seems to reveal its intentions, almost saying, "This story comes from the same root as the fall of the adversary." There is yet another striking image, imprisoned angels bowing before Enoch. Chapter 7 describes these celestial beings, imprisoned in the second heaven, kneeling before the exalted patriarch, pleading for his intercession and for mercy. This scene echoes Adamic legends, in which the angels are tested on their willingness to honor humanity. In some versions, the one who opposes and his followers refuse to bow before the first human being, a moment that defines their fall. However, here, the imprisoned watchers kneel, acknowledging their failure and seeking forgiveness. To understand how far this idea extends, it is helpful to move forward to 3rd Enoch, also called Sefer Hekalot, a later work that depicts Enoch himself as the archangel Metatron. In the 4th chapter of 1st Enoch, angelic leaders with names like Susa and Asa bow before Metatron. These names resemble the chiefs of the Watchers in 1st Enoch, drawing a clear line between the ancient narrative of the Watchers and later Jewish mystical texts. Some scholars believe that this motif of reverence is a later invention, borrowed from rabbinic accounts about humanity being honored. But others, like Gary Anderson, argue that the origin is much older, going back to the earliest stories about Adam, where the angels face a test of loyalty. Evidence of these roots also appears in 2nd Enoch. In chapters 21 and 22, when Enoch reaches the boundaries of the 7th heaven, God invites him to remain forever in his presence. Then the Creator says to the angels, "Let Enoch join us and remain before my face forever." The angels obey, bowing and declaring, "Let Enoch obey your word, O Lord." This moment reflects the account of the life of Adam and Eve, where Adam is exalted and honored by the angels, and where the figure of opposition once refused to bow. Michael Stone pointed out that the expression used in 2nd Enoch, chapter 22, verse 6, translated as, "put them to the test," reinforces the idea that the obedience of the angels is being tested. It is the same narrative structure found in the earliest accounts about Adam. In other words, the Book of Enoch does not merely borrow the Watcher's tradition from random sources. It seems to engage directly with the Adamic myth of rebellion and veneration. The prince from chapter 7 and the angels who bow may seem, at first glance, like isolated details. But when analyzed together with chapter 18 and the Recolotic texts, a clear pattern emerges. The story of the adversary's fall, the test of angelic loyalty, and the elevation of a human being to a position in the divine court are intertwined in this apocalyptic and symbolic setting. What does this reveal to us? To begin with, it shows how ancient narratives were fluid. Writers freely mixed characters and themes, fallen angels, human heroes, cosmic judgments, to create new messages. As these stories were passed down through different languages and cultures, the boundaries between myths became blurred, giving rise to what we now call Enochian literature. And now, with artificial intelligence identifying these connections, the Book of Enoch can be seen from a new perspective. The machine is not distracted by familiar names or established traditions. It aligns every sentence, every title, and every narrative rhythm to identify hidden overlaps. What once seemed like just an isolated legend about angels, giants, and secret visions is now firmly connected to the archetypal drama of Adam and the celestial opposition, Enoch and the luminaries. After witnessing the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days, Enoch is led even deeper into the heavens, where the great luminaries revolve in their orbits. The archangel Uriel, whose name means light of God, becomes the guide for this part of the journey, revealing every law and regulation that governs the sun, the moon, and the stars. What unfolds is nothing less than a tour through the mechanism of the heavens, where time itself is measured by celestial wheels, spinning in perfect order. First comes the sun, called Orgerus, also known as Thomas. Enoch sees it rise every morning through 6 eastern gates of the sky and set every night through 6 western gates. These are not simple doors, but gigantic portals, with windows to the right and to the left. Through these windows, the sun travels its path, rising high and dipping low, always following its designated route. On some days its journey lengthens and the daylight extends, while the night retreats. On others, the opposite happens, shorter days and longer nights, all according to the sun's regular path. Enoch learns that the solar chariot is driven by the wind, a flame with a brightness 7 times greater than that of the moon. It never slows down or rests, crossing the sky so steadily that its light seems endless. With each pass through the 6 gates, the sun completes its cycle, bringing warmth and life to the world below. Its twin names, Orgeres and Thomas, remind readers that this great orb carries as much power as it does mystery. A living flame crossing the horizon without fail. Next, the focus shifts to the moon, smaller but no less important. Known by 4 names, Azana, Ebla, Ben, and Ire. It too travels its path in a chariot of wind just like the sun. Its route passes through the same gates, but in a cycle that changes each month. Uriel explains that the light of the moon is only a fraction of the sun's, about 1/17 when full, but still enough to illuminate the night. When young, its brightness grows little by little until the 14th day, when it stands opposite the sun, radiant and full. This 14th night, called the full moon, marks the peak of its cycle. After that it wanes, losing light, until it becomes completely dark. Then, the cycle begins anew. Some months show variations in the times the moon rises and sets, and sometimes it behaves peculiarly, following a slightly different path through the gates of the sky. Each change follows the rules that Uriel establishes, and each rule is connected to a divine order written in the stars. One of the most fascinating lessons arises when Uriel shows Enoch how the sun transfers its light to the moon. This happens on the western side of the sun, where beams cross over to the lunar chariot. As the new light enters, the moon fills up phase by phase, until it shines completely. Then, as the sunlight moves away, it weakens. This simple transfer explains why the nights grow longer and shorter, and how ancient peoples were able to mark the months by observing the shape of the moon. Enoch also observes that the stars follow the sun and the moon through the same gates, each in its own time and position. Their paths intertwine, creating a cosmic dance that sets the rhythm of the seasons on Earth. The days of summer grow longer as the sun's path rises higher. The nights of winter stretch out when it dips below the horizon. The power of the moon over the tides and its changing glow illuminate the darkness and guide nighttime observers. In all of this, Enoch sees a universe built with precision. Every ray of light, every gate and window, every name and number has a purpose. The lessons from these chapters transform astronomy into something beyond the study of distant lights. They become a map of divine order. Under Uriel's guidance, Enoch understands how the heavens carry messages. Time, movement, and light follow laws that go beyond human creation. Now it's time for the cover bonus. If you've made it this far and are enjoying it, leave your like. AI decodes the Book of Enoch and reveals an unexpected message. Did the title flash during the live broadcasts? The guest, Dr. Eleliana Mendes, was calm. Her voice was steady as she explained what the artificial intelligence had discovered. This was not a simple translation, she said. The machine identified hidden repetitive sequences in the text, frequencies that correspond to specific positions of stars and energy waves that have only recently been detected. The audience remained silent. According to the AI, the Book of Enoch was not just an apocalyptic vision. It was a multi-layered message, encoded for an age of machines. Within its verses, there was a countdown, ending exactly 30 days after the broadcast, on a night when a rare celestial alignment would occur. The message ends with a single sentence. Eleliana continued, "When the firmament vibrates, they will return." Speculation exploded. Theories ranged from interdimensional beings to ancient astronauts. The critics, of course, dismissed everything until the 30th day. That night, the sky shone in an unusual way. A low vibration swept across the earth like a sigh from something very ancient. The lights flickered, animals fled, and in places where there should have been no stars, eyes opened. The broadcast was cut off mid-sentence, but the message had already been heard. The veil had become thinner. Why was the Book of Enoch set aside? Questions about who actually wrote the Book of Enoch and when it was composed weighed heavily against its official acceptance. Church fathers and Jewish rabbis compared its language and themes with older scriptures and saw a blend of history, myth, and legend intertwined. Accounts of angels joining with humans, giants walking the earth, and secret journeys through the heavens seemed too fanciful to serve as a solid foundation for doctrine. Over time, religious leaders defined a more restricted list of books, texts they believed were directly connected to eyewitnesses of divine action among the people of Israel. Anything outside this circle came to be viewed with suspicion, no matter how intriguing the story was. When Christianity began to spread, its early teachers faced the same question. which writings truly carried the authority of the apostles. Even though parts of the Book of Enoch echoed ideas found in the New Testament, such as the coming judgment and the pre-existence of the Son of Man, its origins remained shrouded in mystery. The church councils felt that the risk of confusing genuine inspiration with imaginative legend was simply too great. In the end, almost all branches of Judaism and the majority of Christian churches set Enoch aside. Only the Ethiopian Orthodox Church kept the book in its version of the Old Testament, probably because ancient Ethiopian translators and bishops valued its grand vision of heaven, earth, and the final judgment. This does not mean that Enoch disappeared without a trace. In the book of Jude, a brief letter included in the New Testament, there is a direct quotation from Enoch. "Behold, the Lord comes with tens of thousands of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all and to convict all the ungodly of their deeds." This line corresponds almost word for word to the first chapter, 9th verse of Enoch, but quoting a passage did not turn the entire book into scripture. It only shows how the writers of the New Testament sometimes drew on popular Jewish texts of the time to reinforce a point. Jude found a verse that fit his message about the coming judgment, used it, and moved on. Today, Christians can appreciate Enoch without treating it as a book on the same level as Genesis or Paul's letters. Reading the book offers a richer perspective on how Jews of the Second Temple period viewed angels, cosmic battles, and the end times. Themes such as the pre-existence of the Son of Man, the idea of heavenly books recording every life, and visions of God's fiery throne appear in Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation. When these books sound familiar, part of the reason is that Enoch helped spread these images long before the New Testament writers put their ideas on paper. At the same time, some believers suggest that it is wise to make clear what counts as reliable teaching. Passages from Enoch revolve around extravagant legends, giants learning metallurgy, hidden heavens with layers of punishment, calendars set by angelic laws that do not align well with clear biblical commandments. These details sound like religious fiction or mythical fantasy, not like direct revelation. Thus, the wisest approach is to let Enoch add color to the background, while remaining firmly grounded in the biblical canon for the foundations of doctrine. If a theme in Enoch echoes the teachings of Scripture, it can enrich understanding. If it contradicts, it should be set aside. As a result, the Book of Enoch today occupies a curious space. It is not lost, but it is also not fully accepted. It survives in the Ethiopian church, fascinates Bible scholars, and sparks debates on the internet. Some see it as proof of hidden secrets or divine mysteries, too strange for traditional theology. Others regard it as a fascinating myth, a cultural artifact that shows how ancient peoples reflected on issues such as justice, divine power, and the fate of the world. For those who are curious about the space between the testaments, Enoch remains a living and surprising guide. Thank you for your company. Take the opportunity to click on the cards on the screen to watch another video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.